Slugs? The topic of this movie is slugs? Of course, where I live, in the great American Pacific Northwest, we have a lot of little animals called slugs, and I can tell you a lot about them. But I won't. I'll stick to the non-animal version of slugs. Printing slugs off the side of your page. Now, in the last movie, we looked at how to bleed objects from the page off onto the pasteboard. But sometimes you may want to put objects only on the pasteboard. For example, ad agencies and design firms commonly put their logo and contact information outside the page boundary. They want it to print on the client proofs and perhaps even on press, but they want it to get trimmed off later on so that it doesn't show up on the final printed piece. This is called adding a slug. Let me show you how you can do it. It's very easy to add a slug. I'll just zoom in here. I pressed Command spacebar on the Mac or Control spacebar to get the zoom tool and zoomed in there. And now I'm just going to make a text frame here, and I'll move this up here, and I'll say, this page was created by David. There we go. That's as simple as that. That's adding a slug. It's on the pasteboard, it's not on the page, and I can get that to print out just fine. The problem is, I'm not sure exactly how far off the page is going to get printed. So it would be useful if we had some guides, if we had a slug guide, and you can do that very easily. If you are creating a new document, it's easy, right? In the new document dialog box, make sure you have more options turned on here so you can see these options at the bottom, and you can create a slug guide. I'll just make one off the top of the page, maybe 6 picas, which is 1 inch off the top. So that's all you need to do. I'll cancel this because in this case I already have a document. So I go to the File menu, go to Document Setup, and I'll say I want the same thing. I want a 6 pica 1 inch slug guide off the top of the page. And again, if you don't see this, make sure more options is turned on here. Click OK, and you can see that now we've got these little guides that are hanging off here, little blue guides hanging off, and we know that anything that's going to sit inside those guides will get printed out. So we have the information. This was created by David, and maybe I'll put something else on here. We'll say this was output last at, what time was it output last on? We want to make a variable that will change from one time to the next. Every time we output it, we want to have it change what time it was output. So we go to the Type menu. This is just basically creating text variables, which we talked about in the InDesign Essential Training title. So I go to the Type menu, I choose text variables, I say define a variable, and my variable is going to be called what time is it? You can call it anything you want. And I'm going to create an output date variable. I don't need this because I already typed it myself. So I'm going to say there's no text before, but the format is going to be the hour, followed by a colon, followed by the minutes, and then whether it's AM or PM, comma, and then the time zone. And how did I figure out these codes? Oh, it was easy. They're just hiding in here in these little areas here, and the little pop-out menu here. I just simply grabbed it right up here. I'm going to say I want an hour, and then I followed it by a minute, and then I don't need seconds, and so on. So all of that was just pulled right out of this flyout menu. Nothing special. We get a preview of what it's going to look like down here, so I can click OK, and then I'm going to click Insert, and it inserts it right where I wanted it. That's the time. I'll click Done, and now we're good to go. So we have a slug. It's inside of our slug guides, and it gives us the information that we wanted in there. So when we actually print our document, or if we export as PDF, we have to take one last step. So I'm going to go to the File menu and choose Print, click on Marks and Bleed, and then we must turn on Include Slug Area. If this is not turned on, then you will not get anything in this area to print out as a slug. Similarly, if we go to the Export dialog box, and we say export this as a PDF document, click on Marks and Bleeds, and we can see that we have to turn on Slug Area here as well. When we do that and actually export the PDF and open it up in Acrobat, we can see that the information is added above the page, outside of the trim area. You may have noticed too that the time changed. Remember, that's a variable, so whenever it changed, it took just a few minutes from when I created that variable to when I export it, so the time changed automatically. There's really no limit to what kind of items you can put in this slug area. Anything that fits inside this area will be printed.